Today I want to take you through an investment strategy that is a well-kept secret in Toronto. Well, it's not even really a secret, but just a topic that seems to have a bad rep or stigma here in the city. I'm almost scared to say it out loud. Okay, here it goes. We're talking about Airbnb. Yep, that's right. We're talking about Airbnb, the home sharing platform that can 3, 4, 5 times the cash flow from your investment. And guess what? It's not even that hard to set up with the right guidance, of course. In just a second, I'll tell you how one of my clients was able to make $72,000 in their first year running an Airbnb. I'll be letting you in on the secret sauce of their success and give you the inside scoop from every step from start to finish. We're talking about how to get it all set up and then how to get that cash flow flowing. But wait, that's not all, because here's the deal. Stick around with me till the end and I'll actually hit you with some real, live, unedited numbers from 2022 for the same Airbnb unit operated by one of my clients. And get this, I have their permission to log into their Airbnb account. That's right, we're going behind the scenes so we can break it down month by month and I can show you firsthand the kind of moolah this investment can rake in. So prepare to have your mind blown right now. What's up everyone? My name is Fady Nakhla and I'm a local real estate agent here in Toronto, and for the last 6 years I've been helping people just like you and you and you and you buy, sell, and invest in Toronto. So if you have any questions about the Toronto real estate market or the surrounding areas of the GTA, drop them in the comment section below. You can also reach out to me using the contact information in the description below, and I'd be more than happy to help. Now let's get to the good stuff. Actually, you know what? Before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about my first Airbnb experience. So around 8 years ago, I bought my first investment condo in Toronto. A friend of mine mentioned Airbnb and how it could bring in some serious cash flow right off the bat. I was intrigued, you know? I did a little research and the numbers were mind-blowing. The traditional way of renting my place would get me around $2,400 a month, barely enough to cover my mortgage. But with Airbnb, similar units were raking in around $400 a night. That's $12,000 a month. I couldn't just walk away from that kind of potential. No way. So I went all in. I renovated the condo for about $20,000 and then furnished it fully with another $20,000. And bam, just like that, I was live. I'll never forget that first booking. It was for 7 nights for just under $430 a night. I was on cloud 9, seriously thinking I'd hit the jackpot and was ready to retire right then and there. In that first month alone, after paying the mortgage and maintenance fees for that month, I made nearly $10,000. I mean, talk about a dream come true. But guess what? That dream came crashing down shortly after when I received an email from the building management saying that they had caught wind of my short-term rental activities and that it was against the building's bylaws. At first, I brushed it off, thinking I could fly under the radar, you know, just keep things on the down low, inform the Airbnb guests not to talk to anyone, no one in the building, no concierge, no guests. I thought I was good. But man, a week later, another email hit my inbox, and this time they weren't messing around. They threatened to get lawyers involved if I didn't stop. I was just confused. How are they constantly catching me? I legit thought I had cameras outside my door. It turns out my next door neighbors were this older, retired couple who were always home. And to top it off, they had a dog that would go nuts whenever someone passed their door to get to my unit. They were reporting every little detail to management because they didn't recognize the people going in and out of the unit. And just like that, my Airbnb dreams were over. I wanted to share this story before I got started because there's a lesson to be learned here, and that is to do things right from the get-go so that your investment is protected. I wish I had done the research and done things the right way at first so that I didn't waste the time, money, and effort to get things started and then quickly have to shut them down. So I'm gonna take you through the process of starting up and running an Airbnb business from A to Z so that you don't make the same mistakes that I've made. On a side note, I know I'm using the terms Airbnb interchangeably kind of as a synonym with short-term vacation rental or short-term rental, and I know a lot of people will be like,
well, you don't have an Airbnb business, that's a platform, you have a vacation rental business.
Well, in Toronto, Airbnb is actually the only platform that you're allowed to use to advertise your short-term rental if it's less than 28 days. They don't allow Vrbo or Booking.com or Expedia. So yeah, for the remainder of the video, I will continue to use those terms interchangeably. Now back to the good stuff. In 2023, the short-term rental market is stronger than ever. Actually, it's stronger than it's ever been here in Toronto because the city has implemented a bunch of new rules and regulations for short-term rental operators that has essentially essentially weeded out a lot of the competition. Now I'm going to warn you, this first part is a little boring, but we do have to go through it because again, you want to make sure that you do things right so that you're not paying for it later on. The first thing I want to do is go over the rules and regulations regarding Airbnb in Toronto. What are you allowed to do or not allowed to do? I thought the best way to do this was to go straight to the source on the City of Toronto website where they explain everything. So let's get right into that. So what is a short-term rental legally? Well, the city defines short-term rentals as homes or rooms that are rented on a short-term basis for a period of less than 28 consecutive days. The operators of these rentals are required to register with the city, which I'll go over in a second, and secondly, collect and remit a 6% municipal accommodation tax on their rentals. Now in Toronto, Airbnb will actually add this 6% to your bookings, collect it for you, and submit it to the city. So you don't actually have to do anything for this. It all happens automatically. Now you are only allowed to Airbnb your principal residence. So this will be the address that is listed on your driver's license. It'll also be where you are paying insurance and bills for things such as internet and hydro. And yes, the city will require a copy of this during the registration process. Now, if you're doing this in a condo, which you most likely are in Toronto, then you need to make sure that the building does allow it because a majority of the buildings downtown right now do not. You can rent up to 3 bedrooms in the condo separately for an unlimited number of nights per year, or an entire home for a maximum of 180 nights per year. So I already know what you're thinking. What am I gonna do with the unit after that initial 180 nights? Well, there's a couple of options, and it really depends on what your ultimate goal is. Number one, you can live there or use it personally because technically it should be your primary residence, and this way you essentially live mortgage free for that year because the 6 months of Airbnb will most likely cover your 1 year of mortgage, if not more. Or number two, you can rent it monthly. You just have to make sure it's over that 28-day threshold, and you can do this multiple times so you can have multiple 28-day bookings. You can do this directly through Airbnb by simply switching the minimum nights to 28, and there really is just as big a market for monthly rentals as there is nightly. You can also list it monthly the more traditional way, furnished through an agent on MLS or through many of the furnished rental third-party sites that exist here in Toronto. Now you might not make as much during that period, but it will tide you over until the new year when you can go back to nightly rentals. So the registration process again is very simple. You do it all online by registering on the website. You will need, like I mentioned earlier, a valid government issued ID, which includes address. So for most people that will be a driver's license. You'll need to make sure that the name on the ID matches the name on the registration, and that includes the middle name. I've heard lots of horror stories where the names don't match and then the city will randomly take down listings and then cancel all upcoming bookings for those listings. On the online registration, you'll need to provide details of the rental, including the address and the type of building your rental is located in. You will then be required to pay a registration fee, which is valid for 1 year and needs to be renewed every year. It goes up a little bit every year. For 2023, it was $53.22. Now, after you submit the application, the city will review it. It will usually take between 1 to 2 weeks up to a month. And then once approved, you'll get an email with a registration number that needs to be included in your listing on Airbnb. So that was a quick summary of the rules and regulations and how to register for short-term rentals in Toronto. So now let's say you've stuck with me this far and you've decided that this seems like a good idea or a good fit for you and you want to go ahead and do this. Where do you start? So your first step is buying a property in a building that allows short-term rentals. There's a handful of these buildings that do allow it, but not a majority do. Also, some are definitely better than others. If you'd like a list of those buildings, drop a comment in the section below or shoot me a message and I'll send that right over to you. A second part of this first step would also be doing the research before the purchase. Now, I obviously haven't talked about mortgages or pre-approvals or anything like that, but you essentially want to figure out if this investment will be more profitable, and if so, how profitable before you get into it. You do this by looking at the projected revenue minus your expected expenses and figure out how much you expect to net each year, which would be your net profit. Now, I'll post a link to my calculator in the description below. It's an Excel spreadsheet that I adapted from multiple other people, and I added a few parameters that are more tailored to the Toronto market. To figure out the potential revenue, you'll look at comparables in the area. What are some similar Airbnbs? What revenue do they make? And what revenue can you therefore expect to make? I definitely recommend Price Labs or Beyond Pricing for this information. They're both third-party platforms that compile this data for you so that you can get an idea of what you'll be making based on the area or specifics of your unit. On the flip side, for expenses, you would would factor things in like mortgage payments, maintenance fees, the annual property taxes on the property, property insurance, all information that is readily available. Really all expenses that you'll have whether you do long or short-term rental, with the exception of furniture and sometimes a little bit of extra maintenance cost. So it's definitely important to figure this out first to make sure that the investment is financially sound. A couple of last important points I want to mention with this is obviously the longer you do this, the better, because the furniture is a one-time cost that will eventually get paid off. And second, make sure you pay attention to interest rates because they obviously do go up and down, although I don't think they're coming down anytime soon. So make sure you take that into consideration. Okay, so you found a unit, you've done the research, and you've gone ahead and made a purchase. The second step would be applying for a short-term rental operator license and paying that $53.22 fee. Like I had mentioned, it does require that this unit be your primary residence. This is how they regulate it and make sure that you're not running multiple units illegally. Now, however you'd like to set that up is up to you, but you will be required to have a driver's license with that address to show as proof to the city through their website. All your bills such as internet and hydro will also be set to your name as well. The third step will be furnishing the unit. I would not go overboard on this step or buy any high-end furniture. I'd be looking for more durability. The Airbnb platform actually has a list of things you should buy and keep in the unit to make it functional, from things like toaster, forks, linens, to bigger items such as couches, beds, TVs. A good way to do this or get ideas would be to actually log into Airbnb and search your area and just see what the units look like, because those will really be your main competition. If there's one important piece I could share here, it would be to make sure that you get a second bed in the unit, whether it be a pull-out couch or a bed in the den if you're not in a 2-bedroom unit, because once you are able to advertise with 2 beds, you're then able to ask for a much higher price point in Toronto. And that takes us to step number 4, which would be deciding if you'd like to manage the unit yourself or if you'd like to hire a management team. If you want to do it yourself, you would need to hire a cleaner that can come in after every stay. You can Google Airbnb cleaner, or if you'd like, I can recommend a few cleaners I know my clients use, and these days it's very passive process. The cleaners will link directly to your Airbnb calendar, so you never really need to communicate with them other than paying them every month. You'll also probably need to go in once every few months or so just to restock the essential items such as toilet paper or garbage bags, and I believe some cleaners will actually do this for you for a small additional cost. Most of the communication process with guests can be automated directly through the platform, but you may need to answer the odd question here and there about things like restaurant recommendations or early check-in requests. Pricing wise, there are many third-party sites that can do this for you automatically based on the area and the demand, and the 2 big ones I had mentioned before are Price Labs and Beyond Pricing. They're both really good and take a very small fee. And lastly, there's always that concern: what if someone throws a big party and trashes my unit? You can greatly minimize that risk by firstly including a large security deposit requirement with every booking, again directly through the platform, and second by setting the minimum night stay to nothing less than 3 or 4 nights. That way no one can book just a Saturday or a Sunday to host a party. Nowadays, it's also required that you purchase short-term rental insurance to replace what would have been your typical landlord insurance. And this will obviously have a little bit of a higher premium, but it does offer you more protection as well. And to top it all off, I believe Airbnb also offers a blanket insurance policy as well that would cover anything your insurance doesn't cover, if it came down to it. Now on the flip side, if you decide to go the other route and hire a management company, that's okay. They'll obviously just handle everything for you, but take a cut of the profits. I've seen some companies take as high as 25 to 30%. So it is a substantial amount, but then it's a lot more hands-off. So that's the trade-off. And that's it. You are now ready to go live with your listing. If you have any questions about any part of the process, from the purchasing side to the management side, just send me a message or drop a comment in the section below and I'll do my best to help. As promised, if you stayed with me till the end, I will now be sharing with you actual numbers for a 1+ den unit downtown Toronto owned by one of my clients. This is not edited, is 100% real, it is coming directly from the account, so you can see for yourself just how effective this investment strategy can be. I helped this client purchase this unit near the beginning of 2022 for around $700,000. They furnished it and went live with it on Airbnb May 2022, and here's how they did their first year. Okay, so this is the insights page on my client's Airbnb account. This page pretty much shows everything related to bookings, earnings, payouts, anything of that nature. So for 2022, I was not able to go earlier than July 2022, but that's okay because there is a graph here that shows the entire year, and we can pretty much roughly see how much was made in the previous months in May and June. So for the first month here that is selected, July 2022, my client made just over $12,000. For June, based on the graph, it looks like they made about $10,500, and then in May it looks like they made $5,500. I know they started in May, so maybe they didn't get the full amount of bookings here by the time everything was up and running, so that's why this amount is a little lower, because I know May usually is just as high as the rest of the summer months. Once you go to August, looks like they made a little under 12,000, and then September a little over 12,000. October, $9,852, November, $6,549, and then the lastly was December, $4,449. And this last month here was actually just one booking for 1 month. One person paid this amount, because remember when I mentioned you could only have 180 nights booked through the nightly system, so it looks like they may have exhausted that between May and November. So they used that last month, December, to get that one booking, which is still a really solid amount for that 1 month. Now, when I go to the full transaction page, you can see here from January 2022 to December 22, for the entire year, they were paid out $72,562.89. And there you have it. It's actually unreal, right? The power of running an Airbnb in Toronto, where you can seriously multiply your investment's cash flow. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or a seasoned investor, there is tons of potential, and depending on your end goal, there's lots of ways to do it. If you have any questions or want to dive deeper into the world of short-term rentals or Toronto real estate, drop your comments below or shoot me a message or give me a call, and I'm here to guide you every step of the way.